What's up, everybody? I am back with a new reaction video from Lady Decade. I just recently did a reaction video of hers regarding Ubisoft and the Prince of Persia remake that got completely canceled altogether. So we got a new one since I just wrapped up the trailers for the Sony State of Play, which you can check out on my YouTube channel. Which, by the way, please follow me on my YouTube channel and leave a like and a comment below. Let me know which games are you looking forward to the most from what you saw. But also follow me on my Twitch as I stream games, react to content, react to videos, review content, and stream. So she's gonna be talking about the Sony State of Play. So it's perfect timing. I wanted to make sure I wrapped up the reaction videos of the game trailers before I went to this video. So without further ado, let's see what she has to say. Just making sure, because sometimes I be forgetting to have my extra window up.
The era of slop is finally dead. For years now, we've been force-fed a relentless diet of live service, extraction shooters, half-baked multiplayer experiences.
Oh, really quick, that was a good point. There was a good period of time where everybody is trying to do multiplayer open world stuff. It was a lot. Remember that era where everybody's trying to do a time loop type of game? That was like a weird era of that too. I don't know what was in the air, but everybody, almost most devs were doing some kind of time loop game. It's weird.
And cynical cash grabs masquerading as games. Games like Concord, heavily featured in State of Play 2 years ago, tell us all we need to know about how out of touch and greedy the industry became. Certain publishers told us repeatedly that traditional gaming was on the way out and the future belonged to always online ecosystems built around player retention metrics rather than player joy. Well, State of Play just proved that PlayStation and their partners have been largely listening to what we've been rejecting, because beautiful character designs are back, single-player narratives are thriving, creativity is being promoted. Everything I love about gaming, everything that made me fall in love with this medium in the first place, was on full.
Yeah, definitely Sony did that thing today. I really enjoy a lot, even though there's quite a few games that really wasn't piquing my interest, but I still respect the fact that there was some creativity involved. There was some originality involved in a lot of this stuff. But yeah, there's at least 8 or 9 games that I saw in the Sony State of Play that most of which I already knew about. I think we all knew about like a year or so ago that was, we already was privy to that. But it was at least a few extra ones that just, was announced on the State of Play that really caught my eye. That's like, oh my god. Now, well, technically there's I have to recount, but most of this, out of the 8 or 9 stuff, the bulk of it is coming out this year. And and all the I have to re-look at this. I think I kind of only count the stuff that's only coming out this year. But there's also a handful of others that will probably be coming out next year too. So it's probably at least darn near, at least for me, darn near maybe close to 15, 16 games. Probably close to 18. Maybe, I'm not sure. I gotta do a recounting, but the bulk of the stuff is coming out this year, and then there's some carryover getting to next year. So in regards to PlayStation players, they're eating good. Now, of course, I don't quantify myself as a PlayStation or Xbox kind of guy. I already got the Xbox One, the Series S, the PS5, PS4, and the Nintendo Switch. And this April, on my birthday, I am planning on getting myself the Switch 2 so I can stream Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, because that was the first Fire Emblem game I ever played, that I want to stream that for the channel. Because I already did Three Houses and Engage. Engage really sucked, but man, I love Three Houses. And it's a crying shame that, I mean, I don't want to re-stream the same games over. Like, I do new walkthroughs over again. I keep promising myself, don't do it again. It's kind of like a waste of time. But I really love Three Houses. It was a really fun Fire Emblem game. But Path of Radiance is still, like, you know, probably like my second favorite Fire Emblem game. Well, it was only two Fire Emblem games. Well, three Fire Emblem games I played in my lifetime. Two of which is like top notch. And of course, it's still the brand new one that was announced last year that I'm looking forward to.
Display during that presentation. So let's celebrate that and talk about my personal highlights. I am Lady Decade, and if you like proper gaming coverage, then hit that subscribe button, because today we're celebrating the death of Slop and the return of quality gaming. The modern gaming landscape has been pretty bleak in the past couple of years, so I am incredibly grateful they seem to be making games great again. Still, there have been recent diamonds in the rough, and
I love Expedition 33. Initially, when Fallen Feathers was announced, it did pique my interest, but as they progressed and the date was coming, it became like, oh, it's another Neo kind of thing. I tried a Neo game. It wasn't for me. Not that I hate it. It's just like, yeah, this is not my speed. And Fallen Feathers is pretty much similar to that. So I kind of decided not to pick it up.
right now you can grab some genuinely exciting titles for next to nothing. How about Tomb Raider Remastered Trilogy for under a fiver, Stellar Blade at 42% off, Expedition 33 down 48%, and Nier Automata at a hefty 61% off, plus thousands more discounts besides. Using those links helps keep the channel going, which I genuinely appreciate. And if you want to support things a little bit more directly, there's also my Patreon for behind the scenes cosplay content, extras and more. Right, back to the video.
Scribe is how you stop explaining the same thing over and over at work. Watch this. It'll change.
Straight out of the gate, I was instantly impressed with what was on display. Kenna Bridge of Spirits is getting a sequel, and it's called Kenna Scars of Cosmora, and the game looks like it's taking everything that worked about the original and expanding it significantly. From what we've seen, the game appears to be drawing mechanical inspiration from Breath of the Wild, which is about the highest compliment that you can give an action-adventure title. The traversal looks more fluid and exploratory, the combat system seems to have more depth and variety, and the world itself appears far more expansive than the relatively constrained environments of Bridge of Spirits. What's particularly exciting is that the Ember Lab clearly isn't playing it safe. They're not just reskinning the first game with a few new levels, they're genuinely evolving the formula. The combat similarities to Zelda are immediately apparent as well. You've got environment interaction, creative problem solving during encounters, and a sense that every fight can be approached from multiple angles rather than forcing you down a single predetermined path. If Ember Lab can nail that sense of experimentation and discovery while maintaining the emotional storytelling that made the first game so memorable, Scars of Cosmora could easily become one of the year's defining releases. I think it looks stunning, and I cannot wait to give it a go. Next up, let's talk about Pragmata, because this is a game that's been living rent-free in my head since Capcom first teased it. We finally got a proper look at this original sci-fi IP, and it's absolutely beautiful. Capcom has spent the last decade proving they know how to make exceptional single-player experiences, from Resident Evil's reinvention to Devil May Cry 5 and Monster Hunter's evolution. Pragmata represents them taking all of that expertise and pouring it into something entirely new. There's a sense of wonder and mystery to what we've seen. The character design is gorgeous, the environments look meticulously crafted, and the whole aesthetic feels refreshingly optimistic rather than cynically dystopian. We've had enough grey, brown and miserable sci-fi settings to last several lifetimes. Pragmata looks like it's offering something genuinely different, a world that invites exploration rather than just demanding you trudge through it. The gameplay itself looks like a fascinating blend of exploration, puzzle solving and action, with an emphasis on atmosphere and environmental storytelling. What's particularly encouraging is that Capcom announced the release date and dropped a gameplay demo immediately. That's the kind of confidence that comes from actually having a finished product.
Yes. And that's what a lot of people keeps, talking about. It's like, we announce these games, we actually like we understand that like not everything's gonna be completely finished or polished, but we need to see something to gauge what to expect. And you gotta at least have something close to a finished product, something to show us to get us hooked. Now, I might not pick up Pragmata, but so far, I respect what I'm looking at here. And because initially I thought, oh, is this like another version of like, what's that game with Norman Reedus? Death Stranding. I thought initially it was going to be a whole nother Death Stranding situation, but so far it looks pretty interesting. But yeah, we actually want to see what we're getting. At least get something close for us to of a gameplay for us to actually gauge, so we can be a little bit confident of whether or not it'll be worth our time. Because cinematics is fun and all, but let's see what the gameplay looks like.
Rather than announcing vaporware years before development is complete. Too many publishers treat showcases as opportunities to sell pre-orders for games that barely exist. Capcom showed up with something you can play right now, and that's brilliant. Now, here's something I genuinely didn't see coming, and it's brilliant. We're getting a brand new AAA John Wick game. An actual proper big budget John Wick title is being developed by Saber Interactive, the studio behind Space Marine 2, which means they've already proven they understand how to make satisfying, visceral action games that respect the source material. What's exciting about this announcement is that it represents exactly the kind of licensed game we should be getting more of. Instead of farming out the IP to whatever studio will accept the lowest bid and churn out something mediocre in 18 months, we're seeing a franchise paired with developers who genuinely understand what makes it work. That's how you get games like Spider-Man, God of War and The Witcher, rather than the endless parade of forgettable movie tie-ins that plagued gaming for decades. The potential here is enormous, so much so that if they play their cards right, it could end up turning out to be one of this generation's standout action titles. Star Wars Galactic Racer was another massive highlight for me. Now, this is pod racing, and I mean that both literally and as the highest compliment that I can give. The original Episode 1 racer on the N64 and Dreamcast were genuinely brilliant, a racing game that understood speed, spectacle and the unique challenge of piloting something that's barely holding itself together at insane velocities. Galactic Racer looks absolutely amazing, and more importantly, it looks like it understands what made the original game work. The track design looks spectacular, with varied environments that clearly demand different racing strategies rather than just being cosmetic backdrops, and crucially, it looks like the game is embracing the mechanical chaos that makes pod racing unique. What's also encouraging is that this appears to be...
As the months carry on, I'm curious, further gameplay will show us, I'm pretty sure you can customize your vehicle, make it a little bit more, give it some better protection to avoid, crashes and what have you. Maybe this is the kind of game you can avoid unnecessary cameos from other Star Wars characters. It's kind of like its own thing. I don't say that lightly because I typically like Jedi stuff. But this is one of those unique things where it's yeah, I can definitely just play like a straight up racing game in the world of Star Wars. And obviously you can customize and build your own character too, because you got a faceless character that you can just do whatever with the outfit. Really cool.
a full budget, properly developed racing game rather than
keep
some
Ubisoft
quick
away from
cash
Star
grab
Wars.
capitalising on nostalgia. The production values are clearly there, the track variety looks substantial, and everything about the presentation suggests this is being treated as a legitimate racing title rather than a throwaway Star Wars product. If it delivers on what we've seen, this could finally be the pod racing game we've been waiting for since 1999. The fact that Star Wars is being used for something other than endless open-world action games or live service shooters is itself worth celebrating. Viewed through that lens, Galactic Racer represents a kind of creative diversity that the license desperately needs. God of War dominated a significant portion of the showcase, and rightly so. We're getting a full remake of the original God of War trilogy, which is exactly what that
they're
era of
doing
gaming
a remaster
deserves.
of the
Those games were
trilogy,
monumental.
as well as like a side scroller of Kratos and his brother when they were young. That's all fine and dandy, but clearly they doing all this to kind of tie people over because I bet you they are working on a new set of God of War games, probably set in like a different pantheon, which people either is like one or two things, either Egyptian pantheon or Japanese pantheon. Those are the major two ones that's people's big guesses.
Achievements defining the PlayStation 2 and 3 eras, while establishing Kratos as one of gaming's most iconic characters. But here's what's really got my attention here. God of War, Son of Sparta, a brand new 2D God of War title that was shadow dropped during the presentation and is playable right now. This is exactly the kind of creative experimentation big franchises should be doing. A 2D God of War in the vein of something like Blasphemous or Dead Cells, with that signature brutal combat and mythological storytelling, sounds absolutely brilliant. This is what healthy franchises look like. You've got the mainline entries delivering the big cinematic experiences that people expect. You've got remakes ensuring new audiences can experience the classics. And you've got experimental side projects exploring what else the franchise can be. That's how you keep something feeling fresh and vital, rather than letting it calcify into a single, endlessly repeated formula. The God of War remake trilogy is going to take years, so it's good that they're not just giving us a teaser, but they're actually giving us something tangible that we can play right now. Dead or Alive news was something I genuinely didn't expect, but here we are. Dead or Alive 6 Last Round is arriving as a definitive edition of the 6th game, which had a somewhat troubled launch but developed into something genuinely excellent
since I was a kid.
once
But,
Team Ninja
pause right there. I haven't played a Dead or Alive game since I was a kid, so it'd be fun to revisit the franchise. Once this comes out, I'm definitely picking that up. Matter of fact, I should add it to the list, Dead or Alive, which don't know if it's gonna be just for PlayStation. Hopefully not, but if it is what it is. Whatever happened to that Kingdom Hearts 4? I still haven't heard anything about that.
got all the post-launch support sorted. More significantly though, Dead or Alive 7 was officially announced, confirming that the franchise isn't dead despite years of silence and speculation. The Virtua Fighter derived gameplay is genuinely excellent, with a counter system that rewards reads and reactions in ways most other fighters don't. The stages are interactive and multi-tiered, creating dynamic environments that meaningfully impact how you approach fights. But of course, the game is also chock full to the brim with many of the most beautifully designed characters in gaming, paired with some of the most cultured physics ever created. The fighting game genre is healthier when there's genuine variety, when different franchises offer different mechanical philosophies and appeal to different audiences. Street Fighter, Tekken and Mortal Kombat dominates the conversation, but there's also absolutely room for Dead or Alive, Virtua Fighter, Soul Calibur and others to thrive alongside them. If Dead or Alive 7 delivers a meaty single-player campaign alongside the competitive multiplayer, it'll be addressing exactly what a lot of fighting game fans have been asking for. Resident Evil Requiem is another massive announcement, and it's precisely what the franchise needs right now. Requiem appears to be continuing the series' momentum, and from what we've seen, it looks like Capcom is once again raising the bar. Requiem features environments that look oppressive and dangerous, enemies that look genuinely threatening, and a tone that suggests this is going to be properly scary rather than just action heavy. Capcom has spent the past few years demonstrating it's one of the few major publishers genuinely committed to single-player excellence. Resident Evil Requiem looks like it's continuing that tradition, and that's exactly what we need more of right now. Silent Hill Townfall got another look during the presentation, and I'm particularly excited about this one because it's set in England. Konami has been on an absolute tear throughout this entire showcase, and Townfall represents them finally taking the Silent Hill franchise seriously again after years of mismanagement and failed attempts. The original Silent Hill games were masterpieces of psychological horror, using the town itself as a character and exploring genuinely disturbing themes through their narratives and environments. Setting Townfall in England immediately gives it a different aesthetic and cultural foundation to build from. English towns have their own atmosphere, their own history, and their own sense of decay, and forgotten places that are distinct from American suburbia or Japanese urban environments. If Townfall can capture that uniquely British sense of place, the grey skies, the industrial decay, the small town claustrophobia, it could create something that feels fresh within the Silent Hill formula while respecting what's made the originals so effective. The Silent Hill renaissance we're seeing at the moment represents exactly how dormant franchises should be revived, carefully, thoughtfully, and with genuine creative vision driving the process. From Konami, Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2 was officially confirmed, which means we're finally getting proper modern releases of Metal Gear Solid 4, Peace Walker, and the other entries that have been stuck in licensing and technical hell for years. Metal Gear Solid is of course one of gaming's most important franchises, and it's been criminal how inaccessible these games have been. What's particularly significant is that Konami is doing the Master Collection properly. These aren't lazy ports or minimal effort emulation packages. The first Master Collection demonstrated they're willing to put in the work to make these games function well on modern systems, and Volume 2 should continue that standard. Castlevania Belmont Curse is being developed by Evil Empire and Motion Twin, the teams behind Dead Cells, and this Konami offering might be the most exciting Castlevania announcement in over a decade. Castlevania has been in a strange place for years, with Konami seemingly unsure what to do with the franchise outside of the Netflix series. We've had remasters and collections, but precious few new games, and nothing that's felt like it truly understood what makes Castlevania special. Handing Castlevania to the Dead Cells developers is genuinely inspired casting. Those teams understand action platforming, they understand gothic atmosphere, they understand tight mechanical design, and they've already proven that they can create something that feels like a spiritual successor to classic Castlevania while bringing modern design sensibilities. Belmont Curse looks like it's taking that same approach, respecting what's made classic Castlevania work while building something that feels fresh and contemporary. Crucially, it looks like the developers understand that Castlevania is about atmosphere as much as it is about gameplay, about creating spaces that feel dangerous and oppressive while still being enjoyable to explore. This represents Konami making smart decisions about their legacy franchises, partnering with developers who genuinely understand and respect the source material, rather than just farming out the IP to whomever will accept the contract. If Belmont Curse is even as half as good as Dead Cells, this will be one of the year's best action platformers and proof that Castlevania still has plenty to offer when it's in the right hands. On the subject of Konami hype, Rev Nor is a brand new JRPG coming from the company, and this announcement genuinely surprised me. Konami hasn't been known for original JRPGs in years, focusing instead on their established franchises and licensed properties. Rev Nor represents them investing in something new, taking a risk on an original IP in a genre that's notoriously difficult and expensive to develop for. From what we've seen, the game looks gorgeous, with a distinctive art style that stands out from the crowd and a combat system that appears to blend traditional turn-based mechanics with more dynamic, action-oriented elements. What's encouraging about Rev Nor is that Konami seems to be giving it proper support and marketing. This isn't being dumped onto the market with minimal promotion. It was featured quite prominently during the State of Play, alongside major franchise announcements. That suggests Konami believes in the project and is willing to invest in it to make it successful, which is exactly the kind of publisher support original IPs need to find their audience. Marvel Tokon.
Yeah, it's like you gotta trust, know who your audience is, and trust that more will come. Like, Rev Noir seems like those. For example, it's like, okay, we got good looking characters. It's JRPG. We know our audience. We know what we need to do. We know what the story is. We have all of our ducks in a row. We're not catering to any hyper specific fan base. None of that stuff. We ain't gonna turn out like Prince of Persia, putting our stuff in different hands and can't come up with nothing to present. No, a lot of these games, whether a few of them don't pique your interest or none of them pique your interest, but you can't deny that all these stuff, most of which are original creative ideas, which you would thought the industry was creatively bankrupt. This shows like you get like some confident, competent developers out there in the world. We get good material, and because you put in that effort, people will come in droves to buy it, because we're starving for original content, or at the very least starving for the kind of games that we used to love back in the day, with all this slop, like she points out, like Conquer, where it seems just very lazy in terms of character creation and writing and gameplay. This is just brilliant all around. Like, Sony is like provided brilliant stuff for us to chew on. As a matter of fact, they'll be making a heck of a lot of money within this year, getting to next year.
Fighting Styles got new character reveals during the presentation, including Wolverine, and this franchise continues to look like it could be something genuinely special within the fighting game space. Marvel has had a complicated relationship with fighting games, with the Marvel vs. Capcom series delivering some of the genre's most beloved entries before collapsing into licensing disputes and terrible management decisions. Tokon represents a fresh start, a chance to build something new without the baggage of previous iterations. What's immediately apparent is that the character designs are beautiful, properly detailed and expressive, rather than the oddly lifeless models that plagued Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite.
Yeah, Infinite was notorious of this whack designs. Oh my god, I couldn't even continue on. It was so bad. It was one of those few games I could not. It's like this and Fire Emblem Engage, where everything was so like either boring, bland, or bad. I couldn't been bothered to even finish it. It was like my body just like refused to even continue. It was that bad. It's like you get that kind of feeling. It's like you're just done with it. You just don't have the spirit to do it.
Wolverine looks like Wolverine, not some weird approximation.
This gets you hype. The dynamic of the characters and the background.
A simplified version designed to match MCU branding requirements. The animations look fluid.
Like, fluidity. There, there's like effort in color. Compare this to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Like just the color and the characters alone is a stark difference. My theory is because people behind Marvel Rivals and Tokon are from like Japan or China, who has probably more respect for the IP than the Western countries have been doing since, I think the last time they had that level of effort in the Western front was back when Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out. I think that would be the last time we did anything on our end to make these characters really pop.
And impactful. The special effects are spectacular without being visually cluttered, and the whole aesthetic suggests a development team that genuinely understands both fighting games and the Marvel Universe. Fighting games live or die on their rosters, and Tokon appears to be building something substantial. The character variety shown so far suggests that they're pulling from across Marvel's history rather than just focusing on whoever has a movie coming out. That's exactly the right approach, because fighting game players...
And that was the biggest issue with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. Most of that stuff seems like generic, just like with Marvel Avengers game. It's pretty much like you're trying to subtly create like the actors just in hopes that people will just come just by that because they've seen the films. Like, no, just do your own thing. You can make references to the films and TV shows, but you have to be confident in your own thing. That's where Tokon and Marvel Rivals is doing so well, because it is just a glorified carbon copy of Hugh Jackman or Ryan Reynolds in the Deadpool and Wolverine costumes in the games. No, it's their own thing, and they reference those things. But by and large, it's their own thing. And it was just refreshing because, you know, like each little thing needs their own little. That's what might have an issue with like the comics. I was about to get into that. Basically, what some of the issues I have with Marvel Comics is that they're too intertwined with the films, where they've got you got to keep this kind of crap separate. Okay, you don't need to have all your characters to look like the actual actors. Okay, you don't need to have any too much blending of the two. That's why like the Marvel Comics don't need to have Kamala Khan trying to be a mutant, trying to have synergy with the MCU. No, she's an Inhuman. At the very least, you should keep her as an Inhuman in the comics. I don't care if it causes confusion for the moviegoers. They ain't gonna read the comics anyway. If they are anywhere interested, they can ask people, read the comments, or be about to ask somebody so they can get some clarification. Like, oh yeah, the movies did their own thing, but in the comics, in the canon, she's an Inhuman. Leave it be. Or if they don't care, they don't care.
Want deep cuts and fan favourites, not just commercially prominent characters. The genre works best when it's treated seriously, when developers invest in mechanical depth, competitive balance, and substantial single-player content. If Tokon delivers on all of that while celebrating Marvel's rich character catalogue, it could become the Marvel fighting game fans have been waiting for since Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I genuinely feel like hell has frozen over because a Ubisoft game is coming out that I actually want to play. Rayman is finally getting a proper recognition with a 30th anniversary collection, and it's about time. Rayman has been one of Ubisoft's most beloved franchises, but the character has been criminally underutilized for years, relegated to mobile games and the occasional cameo while Ubisoft focus on their open world assembly line. It's typical Ubisoft mismanagement. What made Rayman special was its willingness to be weird, to embrace surreal art direction and imaginative level design rather than playing it safe. The franchise never took itself too seriously, but it also never felt cynical or lazy. These were carefully crafted platformers with real mechanical depth and creative confidence. One thing that really jumped out at me during the presentation, though, was that Rayman was the only title I noticed where the publisher was more or less glazed over in the on-screen branding. It's a tiny detail, but it says a lot. You can almost feel Ubisoft trying to distance the game from its own increasingly toxic corporate image, letting the franchise stand on its own rather than leaning on the Ubisoft name as a selling point. When a company stops treating its logo as an asset in marketing, you know the brand itself has become part of the problem. Rayman games, though, deserve proper modern releases with quality of life improvements and preservation efforts that ensure they remain playable for future generations. More importantly, though, this collection hopefully signals that Ubisoft is seriously considering new Rayman projects, rather than letting the franchise continue gathering dust while they churn out another generic open-world title. Rayman represents everything Ubisoft used to be good at before they became obsessed with live service monetization and open world checklists. Hopefully this collection reminds them what they're capable of when they actually trust their creative teams and let them make something with personality and heart. Another game I thought looked great is Mina the Hollower. This has been one of my most anticipated indie games since it was first announced, and everything we've seen continues to look exceptional. Yacht Club Games, the developers behind Shovel Knight, have proven they understand retro-inspired design in ways that most studios don't. They don't just slap a pixel art filter on something and then call it nostalgic. They genuinely understand what made those games work mechanically and aesthetically, and they build on that foundation rather than just imitating it. Mina the Hollower looks like it's taking inspiration from Game Boy era Zelda games, which is exactly what I've been craving. The art direction is immediately striking, with a colour palette and a visual design style that evokes Game Boy without feeling limited by it. This game clearly isn't embarrassed by its inspirations or trying to hide them. It's proudly wearing them like a badge, while demonstrating that there's still so much potential in this style of design. Yacht Club Games has earned the benefit of the doubt. Shovel Knight was exceptional, and their continued support and expansion of that game demonstrated a genuine commitment to quality and community. Mina the Hollower looks like it's continuing that tradition, and if it delivers on what we've seen, it's going to be one of the year's essential indie releases. So, here's what State of Play ultimately proved. Single-player gaming is not dead. Beautiful character designs and confident art direction are not relics of a bygone era. Creativity and craftsmanship can still triumph over cynical monetization schemes and focus-tested mediocrity. Everything that I love about gaming, everything that made me fall in love with this medium decades ago, is once again alive and thriving. The era of slop is hopefully over because we collectively refused to accept it any longer. We stopped buying the live service garbage. We voted with our wallets, and
you know, it's gonna be some, like, you know, woke weirdos pissy about this because, you know, they couldn't get their freaking way. Their takeover of the industry did not work because they are the minority compared to the majority of people who understands what games need to be and how they should be, and not doing some glorified checklists. Okay, not worry about offending anybody or like need to be some self-inserts of anything. We want good-looking games. Look at this roster up here. Look how pathetic this looks compared to something like Marvel Token or Rivals, or even like Resident Evil Requiem. We want something that entices you want to play. And part of that is actually looking good. But but yeah, the idiot voice actress, trying to smear Blizzard because her character model, the new character from Overwatch, isn't ugly enough because you want to push an agenda. God, it's so dumb, so freaking dumb, and she should have been fired. Yeah.
The industry has finally been made to listen. What we're seeing now is a renaissance, publishers and developers rediscovering that making genuinely good games that respect their audience is not just creatively fulfilling, but commercially viable. This is what we've been fighting for. This is what we've been asking for. And finally, gloriously, it looks like what we're getting. Don't forget that right now you can grab Tomb Raider Remastered Trilogy for under a $5, Stellar Blade at 42% off, Expedition 30.
Alright. Yeah. Good. Bravo, Sony. You did like an incredible year. You made an incredible list of games. A lot of it. Like, my wallet's gonna be hurting the amount of games I'm getting because it's insane. Even if like a few kind of fell off by the wayside, it's still a lot that I really want to get. There's gonna be a lot of walkthroughs I'm gonna be doing on the channel, so look forward to that. But anyway, I will see you all soon. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys' opinion on the Sony State of Play and all the stuff they debuted. And do you agree with Lady Decade about like the era of Slop being over? Like, do you feel like truly it's over? Because I'm feeling like we're slowly and surely getting back to the basics. But anyway, I will see you guys soon. Take care.